Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to qualifying day for the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix weekend. Hope you guys are well. Of course, qualifying on a Friday, something we haven't had for a few races. It's the first sprint weekend this weekend we've had since the Belgian Grand Prix, which was the end of July. We had a welcome break from the sprint races, which, you guys know my opinion about them at this point. But unfortunately, yeah, it is a sprint weekend, and the next Grand Prix in Austin, also a sprint weekend, and a couple of weeks after that, another one in Brazil. So yeah, that's not great. But qualifying, of course, thankfully, does not set the grid for the sprint race and has nothing to do with the sprint race. It only sets the grid for what we really care about, which is the Sunday race. And of course, that's what we're going to be getting into today. And the qualifying session in Qatar begins in just under an hour and a half's time. Of course, in this build-up, we'll get into many things. The results, of course, from the first practice session, which I have to say, from watching it, not very representative, not because of it being held in daylight necessarily, but track conditions were very poor, especially in the first, say, 20 minutes or so. So yeah, it wasn't really a representative session at all, but we'll get into the results anyway. I'll also get into the official announcement of car upgrades as to who has brought what for this weekend's Grand Prix. And of course, we'll get into the teams in detail, and I'll go through how I think they'll get on in qualifying this evening at least in the UK. Before we do that, though, and get into all of that stuff, just want to say, hope you guys are doing well, no matter what time zone it is in your part of the world and what part of the world you're from. Hope you're all having as best a time as possible. Yeah. I think qualifying today might be, not saying it will be, hopefully it's not, but it might be the highlight of the weekend, because this track is not exactly, it's not an easy track to overtake at. So yeah, this could be the most exciting part of the race weekend, unfortunately. But like I said, let's hope I am wrong with that. But let's, and actually one more thing before I get into this build-up is, of course, there's a poll running at the top of the live chat. And I've asked you guys, who is most likely to challenge Max Verstappen for pole position today at the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix? Your options are Leclerc, Hamilton, Norris, and Piastri. Out of those four drivers, let me know who you think is most likely to put up a fight against Max Verstappen for pole today. And of course, I'll get to those results right before I think we get into Q3 is normally how we do it, or how we have done it recently. So we'll just keep doing that. So yeah, if you need some time to think, then make sure to have a think. But yeah, let me know in that poll for the next couple hours who you think is most likely to put up a fight against Max Verstappen, if anyone. Anyway, let's hide this timer and get into the results of first practice. And yeah, it was a very dusty track in practice one, and because they've also resurfaced the track, the surface is quite low grip compared to what it was like in 2021, so not anywhere near the same experience as it was a couple years ago. Plus they've redone the curbs and I think the runoff areas, and as David Croft was saying in practice one, the Lusail circuit has basically just been a construction site for the last 8-9 months, and that's why it was so dusty, and why, again, the surface was quite low grip. And that's why we saw in first practice so many drivers going off the track, the rear end being all over the place on so many cars because of how poor the surface was. And it did remind me, not as much as this example, but it did remind me of when we went back to Istanbul Park in Turkey in 2020. You remember, even in the dry, the track surface was that slippery. It was basically like driving in the wet. And then, of course, when it rained, it was basically impossible to drive. So yeah, it kind of reminiscent of that, but not as bad as what we saw in Turkey a few years ago. But in practice 1, despite the lap times being very slow, Max Verstappen quickest on a 1:27.4, which is, I think, 7 seconds slower than pole position at this track 2 years ago. And there has been no alterations to the layout, by the way. That's purely down to, obviously they're not going to be pushing as hard in practice 1 as they will in qualifying, but that's really down to the resurfacing of the track and how dusty it is and all of that. Plus, it was quite hot in practice 1, and it is going to be a very hot weekend, which is definitely not going to help the teams. Even with the key sessions taking place after the sun's gone down, the temperatures are still going to be well into the 30 degrees Celsius range. So, yeah, the conditions this weekend, absolutely not ideal for the teams and, of course, for the drivers. And then you've got Carlos Sainz in second, a third of a second down on Verstappen, with Leclerc in third. Fernando Alonso fourth. Alonso did his best lap time on the medium compound tyre when the top 3 did their best time on the soft. So, I mean, there's not really that much at all you can read into practice 1, but a slightly good omen, I guess, for Aston Martin, for them to be only half a second off on a slower tyre. And then you got Perez 5th, Tsunoda 6th, Hülkenberg 7th, Russell 8th, and then the 2 McLarens 9th and 10th. The 2 McLarens did their best lap times on the hard compound tyre, which, in comparison to Verstappen, is impressive. And you have to remember, this weekend, we have the C3, C2, and C1 compounds. And obviously, the hard compound tyre being the C1 is a lot harder of a tyre than the C3 is. And I think the difference in lap time between the C3 and the C1 is about a second and a half. So, impressive compared to Red Bull. But again, I don't think there's that much we can read into the practice 1 results. So don't go thinking that McLaren have actually got an amazing car already after just 1 session. And then second practice. What the hell am I talking about? The second half of the order, I think I was trying to say, for practice 1. You have Logan Sargent impressively in 11th place, ahead of Alex Albon. In 12th, Hamilton 13th, Stroll 14th. Lance Stroll, basically 0.8 of a second slower than Alonso, which is quite poor. Then you got Ocon 15th, Gasly 16th, Bottas 17th, Zhou 18th, Lawson 19th, and Kevin Magnussen 20th and last. So, yeah, with the results in practice 1, I don't think we can read really anything into it, which is why I am going to be sticking with the prediction for qualifying that I gave last night in my weekend preview. If you want to go check out that weekend preview, make sure to do so. Link below in the description. But let me just quickly get into my predicted top 10 for qualifying. So this is how I think it will play out. Max Verstappen on pole position by 0.2 of a second from Lando Norris in second. Piastri third, Perez fourth, Sainz fifth, Hamilton sixth, Leclerc 7th, Russell 8th, Alonso 9th, and Tsunoda in 10th. I am 60 to 70% confident that this will happen. And I think looking at some of the predictions from other people coming into this weekend that have actually, are in the paddock, their predictions and thoughts going into the weekend are similar to mine, really. So I don't think it would be really that big of a surprise if it ended up qualifying, finishing up with that top 10. Let me know, of course, in the build-up to qualifying, what do you think your top, or what do you think the top 3, top 5 will be in qualifying? Let me know in the live chat. But before we go any further into this build-up, I just want to quickly get into the upgrade situation and just update you guys about that, because of course I normally do every race weekend. So I just want you guys to know who has brought what new parts. There has been some new parts, but I think it's very minor stuff, to be honest. Right, so yeah, only Alpine, AlphaTauri, and Alfa Romeo have brought upgrades this weekend. But yeah, we'll just get into them now. Let me just get my screen up. Here you go. So Alpine have got a couple performance upgrades, a new floor body, taller diffuser sidewall cut out in the tyre flank area, I think it says, and then a new rear corner for drag reduction. Revised orientation of the rear drum lower flick geometry. So, a small upgrade, really. The biggest upgrade out of all the teams that have brought whatever parts this weekend. But yeah, it's nothing massive from Alpine. Alfa Romeo, a new beam wing for flow conditioning. It says redesigned planes of the beam wing and changed shape of lower part of the rear wing end plate. So just a slight little update there. And a new floor edge for AlphaTauri. And it says, compared to the baseline geometry, the forward part of the floor edge has been modified. So again, very small and minor stuff. But let me just quickly go back here, because I just quickly want to get into something. Because I did tweet about it on my Twitter account. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, by the way, let me just get my screen back up. Yeah, you can see here, this is my Twitter. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, then make sure to do so. But I quote tweeted Tomo F1. Of course, you guys know who that is. A big F1 content creator, one of the biggest, without a doubt, and obviously produces brilliant content. But I quote tweeted him because he did a tweet. And let me just scroll up to the original. So he quote tweeted this, which was the expected simulation pace order without upgrades, and it was this was Albert Fabrega who did this, and Red Bull Racing Daily, which is just a fan account basically, were just covering it. And then Tomo quote tweeted it saying, if Alpine are legit the slowest car this weekend, Otmar was never the problem of that team. Same goes for Binotto at Ferrari. Meddling senior management 9 times out of 10 equals an inevitable shit show. And then someone responded to that saying, Binotto definitely was part of the problem, mate. You are forgetting that this is still his car, which is true. The current Ferrari car was influenced and masterminded, if that's even a proper way of terming this, this 2023 Ferrari car. And then Tomo's response was, he inherited the mess of engine gate and still produced a 2022 car that came out of the gates as quick, if not quicker than Red Bull out the gate. 3 years at a team like Ferrari is not enough to solve everything. Now, as I got into in my quote tweet, when he says he inherited the mess of engine gate, that is factually not true. And the reason I'm getting into this, I know this has no relation really to, to this qualifying session, but I just want to get into this because, of course, I have done plenty of content about Ferrari, Binotto in the past, and this is one bit of revisionist history that I am sick of seeing. And I'm not saying that, that Tomo's doing anything like bad here. He's not. I don't think he's doing this meaning in a bad way or anything. I don't know exactly why he thinks that he inherited that mess, but I decided to do this quote tweet because I wanted to basically do a fact check on, this whole situation. And what I tweeted, as you can see here, this is wrong. Mattia Binotto, before he became team principal, was the technical chief of the team. And he became technical director in 2016, and then it ended at the end of 2018, where of course he then transitioned into Ferrari team principal. So yeah, Binotto, before he became team principal, was technical chief of the team, where he oversaw the development of said illegal engine and did nothing about it as technical chief or as Ferrari's team principal until the FIA put a stop to it. This is revisionist history, and it's true. It is revisionist history, and I did actually eventually, quite a few hours later, link an article where it was an article on Formula1.com where they did a piece on what does a technical director do, basically. And part of it, James Allison states, as I put there, he states that, quote, in general terms, the technical director is responsible for making sure the car is legal, safe, fast, and reliable. And then I put, Binotto failed in his responsibility to make sure the car was legal. All in all, the reason I did these tweets is because I am sick to death of Binotto getting, what's the best way to phrase this? I'm just sick of the revisionist history when it comes to his reign and his time at Ferrari. And when it comes to looking at when he was in key positions at the team, how he doesn't get enough blame for the things that went wrong. Now, was Binotto the entire problem? No, of course he wasn't. He wasn't, he wasn't 100% the problem at Ferrari. He was, I would say, most of the problem in terms of the actual performance of the absolute team, but he wasn't the 100% only issue at Ferrari. But I am sick to death of people trying to say that he inherited that, the whole mess of the illegal engine and all of that, and trying to make out like he wasn't responsible for that when he absolutely was. Again, he wasn't totally responsible for it, but because he was the technical director at the time that it was created, he has to take most responsibility because that is his area of responsibility. So I'm just sick to death of it. And again, I'm not saying that Tomo is, he's not trying to, it's not bad faith or anything what he's doing. I don't know exactly why he thinks that he inherited the mess of Engine Gate, as he says. Maybe he just forgot that Binotto was the technical director. I don't know. I don't know why exactly he came to that conclusion, but yeah, I just wanted to get into it because it pisses me off how Binotto gets protected in the way he does. Because, of course, there is talk about Mattia Binotto, and I'll get the timer back on screen now. There is talk about Binotto being Alpine next season, which wouldn't be necessarily the worst thing in the world, because if they were to hire him as a technical director, Binotto does have qualities when it comes to that area. I'm not, sitting here and saying that Binotto is incompetent and is hopeless at what he does. He is good. It's just when he became team principal, it showed how lacking he was as a team principal. And of course, that was more so Sergio Marchionne's fault as to why Binotto, or why Ferrari failed really from 2019 to the end of 2022, because Binotto was never qualified to be a team principal, and his best role for any team is to be, the head or part of a, technical part of a team. But it's just so, again, so annoying, and I just wanted to display that and just show that, it's because the whole Binotto, the revisionist history when it comes to Binotto, I've seen others do it as well, and it has pissed me off because it's just, again, it's just revisionist history. And revisionist history is so annoying when it comes to literally anything, because especially when people the size of Tomo in terms of his, social media following, when they say these things, people actually believe what he says to be true when it's not. So, yeah. Let me know in the chat what you think of that. But I just wanted to get into that quickly because I saw it last night right before I went to bed, and I thought I have to do a tweet on this because this is literally incorrect. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the live chat, and then we'll, I don't know, maybe have a bit of a debate about it. But just want to say as well, no, obviously, hate towards Tomo. He's a great guy. I've never met the guy or talked to him. But from what I've seen, there's absolutely nothing wrong with him. And, I don't have a problem with him. It's just, I just wanted to correct that bit of, I guess, fake news. I don't know really, again, though, why he said that. So I can't sit here and say, oh, this is why he said that and he's deliberately trying to protect Binotto, because we literally have no evidence that's what he's trying to do. Maybe, like I said, maybe he just forgot that he was technical director, which, given how busy he probably is probably easy to do. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say on that. But we have got just over an hour to go until what do you call it? We've got just over an hour to go until qualifying begins. So let's now get into the teams in detail and get into how I think they'll do in qualifying today. Now, quick warning, as I go on to the Red Bull team, the pictures I will be showing on screen in tonight's watch-along will be, unfortunately, from Japan, because I didn't have enough time after practice 1 to get any pictures, really, from practice 1. So, yeah, unfortunately, you'll have to put up with the pictures from Japan. But, of course, on Sunday, when I'm live for the race, of course, I'll have plenty of pictures from the Qatar Grand Prix weekend to put up on screen. So, Red Bull, by the looks of it, in practice 1, even with the tricky conditions, which, I mean, Max Verstappen did go off the track a couple times, they don't seem to be that phased. Pace was still good compared to the rest of the field, and Max Verstappen is still the clear favourite for pole position. Unless Max makes like a big mistake in Q3, I really don't see how he doesn't get pole position. Even if he makes a mistake on his first run that's like a minor, or even a couple minor mistakes, I don't think he will be denied in the end, ultimately, pole position for this Qatar Grand Prix. So yeah, Max for me definitely gets pole position. The gap will not be as big though in qualifying as it was in Japan, but I don't think anyone out there, team driver wise, has enough to really compete with Verstappen. Sergio Perez though is the more interesting story, I think, going into what do you call it? Into qualifying, because Sergio Perez, especially after not only the way he's performed this season, but after the last couple races, especially where he's been crashing into people. In Japan, he was literally horrendous. No exaggeration. He was absolutely diabolical at Suzuka. He is under massive pressure, and he has to have a consistently good weekend, like he had probably, a few races ago at Spa, where I think he qualified third, finished in second. Something like that is really what he needs this weekend, because if he, does not deliver that, and he's, outside of the top 5 or even top 6 in qualifying, and is really fighting more in the midfield than he is in the top, say, 2-3 positions, he is going to probably crumble under this pressure, because, I mean, we saw once things earlier in the season started to go against him, he went on an all-time bad run, really, for him. And we saw a bit of a recovery right before the summer break, and even just after the summer break, but he's now slipped back into that really bad form we saw in, June, July, of this year. So this is a massive session for Sergio Perez. He needs to be at the absolute worst in 4th place. If he's 6th, 7th on the grid or worse, that is a terrible performance by Sergio Perez. It really is, given how Red Bull should have quite comfortably the best car this weekend in all conditions. So yeah, massive session for Perez. I think he'll qualify in 4th, and I think he will deliver a mostly good weekend. I wouldn't say great weekend, but it will be mostly what Red Bull expect of him. But yeah, if he doesn't show that today, then the rest of the weekend could be a real disaster once again for Sergio Perez. Mercedes-Benz, yeah, don't really have high hopes for them coming into this weekend, as I got into last night. For qualifying, I just don't think they've got a car really that can compete for the top 5 on the grid in a strong way. I know I've predicted Lewis Hamilton 6th and only just behind Carlos Sainz, but I think that's more so going to be Hamilton qualifying in 6th. I think that'll be more so because of Lewis Hamilton producing a great lap more than Mercedes having a car that is about, there on the grid. So, yeah, I'm not really that confident for Mercedes going into this session. 4th best team, I expect them to be. I'd be very surprised if they could out-qualify Ferrari. That would be a pretty good day at the office if they could do that. And maybe not be too far away from McLaren if they were to out-qualify Ferrari. But yeah, 6th and 8th is what I've gone for with them, which is slightly better than the qualifying they had in Japan, but it's still pretty poor for the Mercedes team. I am confident that Hamilton will be ahead of Russell on the grid. Obviously, Lewis a couple years ago here was brilliant. George Russell had an okay weekend in the Williams. It wasn't anything remarkable compared to what he was doing at that time. So that's why I've got Lewis Hamilton ahead of Russell for qualifying. But yeah, if you're a Mercedes fan, do not be expecting these, these great results this weekend after what was a poor showing in Japan, because it really could be, I might be overrating how well they're going to do today. It might be even worse for them today. You don't know. I mean, we've seen a couple times this season where they've had surprisingly poor qualifying sessions. I remember, even though we had was it George Russell 3rd on the grid, we had Lewis Hamilton knocked out. What was it? 13th on the grid, I think, in Zandvoort only a few races ago. Mercedes can be a bit weird at the minute in qualifying. They can either be like really impressive or really just not a disaster, but just really poor compared to what we generally, given where they've been this season, given where, let me try and rephrase what I'm trying to fucking say because I'm all over the place. Yeah, given where we generally expect them to be this season, they either massively surprise us or they massively disappoint us. There's no real middle ground. Obviously, last Grand Prix in Japan was massively disappointing. I thought they would have at least one car in the top 5 of the grid. They were nowhere near that. And then, of course, a week before that in Singapore, they were on the front row of the grid and arguably could or should have won the Singapore Grand Prix. This team is, just all over the place at the minute. So, let's, let's get into the rest of the teams. I will come to you guys, by the way, in the chat very soon. Ferrari next up. Kind of similar to Mercedes. I'm not really expecting anything great today. My prediction for them is 5th and 7th, which is not as good as what we saw in Japan. I mean, in in practice 1 earlier, they were 2nd and 3rd, which is quite a bit better than I expected. But again, the pace in practice 1 was so slow, I don't think it was that, representative, that session. So, I mean, I hope that's their genuine pace for this weekend. That would be great. It would add something a bit new to the weekend than what I was expecting. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be on the same pace as Red Bull or the McLaren team. So yeah, 3rd best team I think they'll be. Carlos Sainz, I think, will be quicker than Leclerc. Was quicker than Leclerc in practice 1, and when they raced here a couple years ago, was quicker in qualifying. So clearly Carlos enjoying this circuit more than Charles Leclerc. I've got Sainz in 5th, Leclerc in 7th. Their main rival today is Mercedes. If they're not that far away from McLaren, maybe they can get ahead of one of the McLarens, but I would be very surprised if Ferrari were to get, to out-qualify McLaren today. I think that would be a very good result for them. And hopefully would put them not that far away from Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. We'll have to see ultimately where they end up. But yeah, 5th and 7th is where I've got them, and I think realistically most people expect that going into this session from them. Aston Martin, not too bad of a practice session, but yeah, I'm not expecting this weekend to be really that competitive. It's funny actually, they had was it Aston Martin? Was she a development driver? I can't remember exactly what her official title was, if it was ambassador or development driver, but her name is Jessica Hawkins, and she did I think a test at, was it Hungary or somewhere? I can't remember exactly where it was. Yeah, she did a test in the Aston Martin, and she was on the Sky F1 coverage in practice 1. She was quite good as well with what she revealed from the Aston Martin team in terms of how they are expecting the weekend to go. And one of the things she did say was the team are expecting this weekend to go like Japan did, really. Not just for them, but really the entire field. So Aston Martin are expecting to be the 5th best team at best, which they were in Japan. And yeah, that's why I've got them 9th in qualifying. Alonso is very good at this track. We saw that a couple years ago. He had a really strong qualifying, given where Alpine were a couple years ago at that particular part of the season. Plus, obviously delivered a brilliant podium where he was so strong in the race. And clearly from practice 1, we can see he looks super quick already. So yeah, Alonso, I think, will end up in the top 10 and qualify in 9th, just ahead of the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda. Lance Stroll, at best, I think, makes Q2, but I would be surprised if Stroll got anywhere near Q3, given his current lack of pace compared to Alonso. Not just slower, but miles slower, nearly a second slower than Alonso. And I think there is definitely a risk with Lance that he will get knocked out in Q1. And to be honest, would we be surprised if Lance was knocked out in Q1? I don't think we would. So, yeah. Alonso in 9th, I think, and Stroll, I don't know, 14th, 13th, something like that. That's the absolute best I can see from him in that car. And the final front-running team we'll go on to is McLaren. Practice 1, not amazing in terms of their pace, but again, everyone was pretty slow compared to what we expected the lap times to be from practice 1. But yeah, they ended up 9th and 10th still, only a second away from Max Verstappen on 2 compound harder tyres. So McLaren, clearly, they have got a lot more pace in the bag. And I am very confident that McLaren will be, at minimum, the 2nd best team in qualifying, and really the 2nd best team for the weekend. So yeah, there's nothing to worry about in my view when it comes to McLaren. David Croft also, with McLaren, he did reveal that Oscar Piastri does actually have experience around this track, because he did, I think, what was it, a couple days of testing for Alpine a couple years ago. And he did, was it 150 or 160 laps, something like that. So thankfully, Piastri has the extra experience that he didn't actually have at Suzuka. And of course, at Suzuka, put it on the front row. So God knows what Oscar is going to do in this qualifying session coming up in just under 1 hour's time. But yeah, I'm sticking with Norris ahead of Piastri, because Lando, most of the time, does tend to be quicker than Oscar, even though Oscar is more so getting on terms, if not being quicker than Lando, as of recent races. But still, ultimately, Lando is quicker than Piastri. And yeah, 2nd and 3rd on the grid is what I've got. If they were to get that, I think they would be pretty happy with that. If they have got a car that can legitimately fight for pole, of course, that would be great if they could try and get pole and even, get it. But let's not put expectations on them that are, a bit too high. If they, can secure a 2nd and 3rd in qualifying and a 2nd and 3rd in the sprint and the race on Sunday, that would be a brilliant weekend for them to try and catch Aston Martin and possibly pass Aston Martin in the championship. So yeah, McLaren, my expectation is second best team, Norris second, Piastri third. Let's hope they are as quick, at least, as what we saw in Japan. And let's just quickly whiz through the rest of the teams before we get on to you guys in the chat and what you guys have to say. Alpine, 15th and 16th in practice one. The expectation from a lot of people was that Alpine were going to be pretty slow this weekend, which is a bit of a surprise to me because I thought this track would actually be a bit kinder to them than the one, the Suzuka track a couple weeks ago. But yeah, the pace so far doesn't be all that great. And yeah, I don't really have too high hopes for them. I think they will be better than people are expecting. I don't think they're going to have the slowest car this weekend. I really don't think that's going to be the case. I think they'll probably be like the 8th or 7th best team, something like that, at least. I don't see them being absolutely horrendous or anything like that. So, yeah, Alpine, I wouldn't say they're a dark horse, but, you know, with certain people out there saying, oh, they're going to be, poor, they're going to be terrible, don't read too much into that because I think people are probably overstating where or how bad Alpine are at the minute. They're not great, not even good, I would say, given where they should be. But I don't think it's not. I don't think they're as bad this weekend as what we saw at Monza, which of course was a month ago, where they were literally the slowest team. I don't think it's that bad. Or as bad, let's say, as Baku, where they ended up, I think, 14th and 15th or something in the race. So, yeah, they'll be better than expected, but still not great. Williams, this track I don't think will be any better for them than Suzuka, to be honest. So I'm not really expecting anything that great from them. If they can get Albon into Q2 and have him in the top, say, 13 on the grid, that would be great, but other than that, I can't see really what Williams can get out of this session. I don't think a top 10 is possible. I just don't think they've got the car for that. It's going to take a really amazing driver performance, I think, to get themselves into the top 10. Good to see, though, Logan Sargent in practice one looking pretty good. One thing that does help Logan is Alex Albon did not race at this Grand Prix 2 years ago when we had, the last Qatar Grand Prix. Because, of course, Albon was on the sidelines. He was, Red Bull reserve driver. So, yeah, that does help Logan this weekend compared to, to Albon in terms of not having the disadvantage when it comes to experience around particular tracks. And let's hope he can keep up the level of performance from practice one, but realistically, he will get knocked out in qualifying one, as sadly he normally does. But let's hope for something different. But yeah, Williams, they're not top 10 contenders at all. Haas had a pretty good practice one, but I don't think they are either. As I said in my weekend preview, really they're just waiting for their big new upgrade coming in 2 weeks' time to really start competing again in the top 10 or so. So, yeah, I haven't really got, any expectations, any big expectations for Haas coming into this weekend. Maybe Hülkenberg can get 11th or 12th if he really pulls a great lap out the bag, but I would definitely be surprised if he got into the top 10. So, yeah. Don't expect too much from Haas. Alfa Romeo look pretty shit. And AlphaTauri, there is quite high expectations for them this weekend. Some people think they'll be quicker than Aston Martin at this track, which is quite a statement if they were to be able to do that, given, of course, where AlphaTauri were at the start of the season compared to Aston Martin. Aston Martin were lapping the AlphaTauris at the start of the season, so that, again, that would be quite something. Yes, Tsunoda looks like he's in good form. which is great to see. And I think he will get into the top 10. Maybe can get 9th place on the grid, which would be great. I think we'll end up in 10th. Liam Lawson didn't have a great practice one compared to his teammate, but I do think he'll be a lot better in qualifying. And I think he'll be either 11th or 12th. And yeah, will be not too far away from the pace of Tsunoda. Maybe a 10th or 2 in the end. But watch out for AlphaTauri, because I think they are probably the dark horse going into qualifying. They could be a team that really causes a big surprise. And again, as I've said in the last couple races, it is great to see, after a big upgrade in Singapore, AlphaTauri having improved as much as they have. So yeah, great to see that from the team. And they've clearly jumped forward by, say, I don't know, half a second, I would say, the gain has been. And they're now probably the best, or one of the best midfield teams, which is what they were at times in 2022 and definitely in 2021. But those guys are all the teams, as we've got just under 50 minutes to go until qualifying. So let me know in the live chat, what do you think will happen in qualifying for all the teams and drivers? And what is your prediction for pole position? What's your prediction for the top 3 in qualifying, the top 5? Let me know, and I will get to your predictions and your comments in the next 45 minutes or so. But just want to say quickly, before we go any further, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Of course, we do qualifying, race watch-alongs, practice watch-alongs sometimes, previews, reviews for every Grand Prix weekend. So if you want to keep up to date with the content on, the content on the channel, and also if you want to keep up to date with what is going on in Formula One, then make sure to make sure to subscribe to the channel. Bottom right of the screen, I'm pretty sure you can click subscribe right there. And as well, for everybody watching right now, make sure to smash that like button. We're currently on 20 likes. Let's try and get up to 30 if we can in, say, the next half an hour or so. And yeah, I'm going to get into your comments in a moment. I do want to just quickly, though, say one thing, and I'm not trying to be mean, but Kiefer in chat, retracting your messages is not gonna, that's not gonna work. I've already caught on to what you're doing in terms of asking the same question over and over again. So don't think that retracting your messages means I won't be able to see them, because I've already seen them. So please stop spamming the same question, or I will permanently disable your ability to post comments. Again, I'm not trying to be mean. I know you're not meaning bad, if that makes any sense. You're well intentioned, but spam is against the channel rules, as stated previously. Anyway, let's get into some comments in the chat. Hello to everyone. I hope you're all doing great. Vince, this is, hey everyone, checking in here. I like Leclerc's chances for pole. He's really good at a couple laps. He's a tough kid driving a Ferrari. I would be surprised if he got pole, to be honest, because even if Ferrari ended up being or proving to be quick enough to accomplish that, I think Sainz is more likely, given his form at the minute, to get it. Kofi Dixon says, is there any hope for George Russell and Lewis Hamilton this weekend? For qualifying, I'd say probably not. But I think for the race, I think maybe, yeah. I think there is some hope, because we are expecting the race to be pretty tough on tyres, and the grip level on the circuit is pretty tough as well. So if they can cope well, Mercedes and the drivers they've got with that, then there's definitely an outside chance of a podium. But if they are too far back on the grid, that will make that a bit too hard to do. But if they can really look after their tyres well and not degrade them as much as other teams, then yeah, there's definitely a chance. I'm not going to say it's impossible. if they end up where I think they'll be on the grid, I think they're going to have probably just a bit too much work to do to get onto the podium on Sunday. But yeah, there's definitely hope to a degree, just not a massive degree. McLaren F1 race says it's not. I don't like Max domination. I just don't like Horner. Max seems professional in his approach, and he doesn't miss driver praise by taking a McLaren F1 races. I watched Tomo for a while, but I don't like his style of content. Horses for courses. Yeah, I mean F1, likes whoever's content for, whatever. Not F1 is going to like the most popular people because of the way they do content, and that goes all the way down. But yeah, his content is absolutely fine from what I've seen. I've watched a few of his videos and streams, and yeah, got zero problem with him. But just felt the need to, even though I don't have that many followers on Twitter, I just felt the need to correct the record. Phone box Chicken asks, any rumors about Williams' second driver? The only thing we've heard is that Logan Sargent is looking more likely to keep his seat, which is, in terms of what is best for Williams, sad, because they need to replace him. But yeah, we'll have to see. But no decision has been made as of yet. Prank says, I agree with you, Chaz, on Bonotto. Find some other comments if I can. Yanni says, you'll all think I'm crazy, but Max will wrap up the F1 Drivers' Championship this weekend. Good one. Elaine asks, do you think 2024 will be like 2023? Yes and no. I think Red Bull will dominate still. I don't think Red Bull are going to lose the championship next year. I'd be very surprised, honestly, if Red Bull, did not win both the drivers and the constructors titles next year. I do think the teams behind will be closer, because I think Mercedes and Ferrari especially will produce a much better car to start the season than what they did in 2023. Of course, I did a video a few days or a couple of weeks ago almost about how Red Bull have destroyed Mercedes and Ferrari in 2023, and I got into the issues plaguing Mercedes and Ferrari, those issues being really caused by themselves. But yeah, I think next year will just be a closer version of this year, where Red Bull won't win maybe as many races, they won't get as many pole positions. The gap on average will be closer from Red Bull to the next car, but ultimately, in the end, Red Bull are still going to win probably 13, 14 at least races next year, and ultimately will win the Constructors and Drivers' Championships. So, yeah. Next year, I think, will be better than this year, for sure, in terms of, entertainment and competition. But ultimately, the result will still be the same. Aline says Verstappen on pole, sadly. Vinster says Liam hype is real. He has to prove himself and he's doing it. Kiefer says Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, then the rest. It is between Perez and the Ferraris. Racing Prodigy says, please do the sprint quali this one time. Unfortunately, yeah, I won't be doing so. And I don't think to be honest, I don't think I'm ever going to do a sprint qualifying watch along. There will be sprint race watch alongs, if you're wondering. before the end of the season. Of course, I'm not going to be doing a sprint race watch along tomorrow. And just so you guys know, in case you don't know, tomorrow I will not be covering any of the action on track. I won't be doing a watch along for sprint qualifying or the sprint race because I don't expect anything really to happen. I think a sprint race around this track is likely to just be a bore fest, to be honest. I know Max Verstappen is probably going to win the championship in the sprint race, but other than that, it won't be remembered for anything. But I will be doing a sprint race watch along for the next race in Austin and also in Brazil. So don't worry, I will be doing sprint content before the end of the season, but it just won't be this weekend because, again, this weekend I just don't see how a sprint race around this track, with it only being 19 laps as well, I just don't see how it can be really anything worth really watching. So yeah, that's why I won't be covering it tomorrow. But of course, I will be live on Sunday for the race watch along as usual. Vince just says Max Leclerc, Norris, Sainz, Alonso, Piastri. Aline says Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Perez, Piastri for their top 5. Seiragaris saying they have faith that Logan will push his form up. I'd be surprised if he, if he is on the grid next year, I would be surprised if he just somehow, closed the gap by a few tenths of a second to Alex Albon. It would be, it'd be quite the turnaround, put it that way, because this season Logan has been quite poor, and I think, for all the memes we do about Nicholas Latifi and all the criticism he got, he was better than Logan Sargent has been, because at least Latifi had the odd race here or there where he would be in the top 10. Of course, Latifi did score points last season in Japan, and also in 2021 he had a points finish in Hungary where he finished in, 7th place, which I know was helped by what happened at the start and all of the retirements in Hungary that weekend, but he still delivered and finished ahead of his teammate George Russell. So yeah, Latifi was definitely better in Formula 1 than Logan's been so far. We haven't seen anything from Logan really that was like where you could sit there. Maybe you could say the Dutch Grand Prix weekend where he qualified in the top 10, but then he ended up, putting it in the barriers again. Other than that, we haven't really seen anything from Logan where we've thought, wow, that was a great performance, or that he's done really well today. It's not really happened for him. And, part of it is a lack of experience, because we have to remember a lot of the tracks on the F1 calendar, they don't race at in junior formula. And that's something he will struggle with, especially in the races from say now on. But at the end of the day, there's been races where he does have the experience of those particular tracks and has been just as bad, if not worse. So yeah, it's it's simply not good enough. And if I'm Williams, I'm replacing him 100%. They regard as Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Perez, Hamilton, I guess. Frank says Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, Piastri, Perez for their top 5. A lot of you go for Norris in second, which is, yeah, it's likely to happen. If I can find, is there any other predictions that I haven't read out yet? Let me check. Vettel, Hamilton says, Chaz, what's your opinion on the sprint race weekends? Yeah, as I've said before, Don't like them. I think it makes it's a worse weekend format than what we have normally. And I actually think there's better alternate or different um you know weekend formats than than the sprint one. For example, as I talked about I think last night in my weekend preview, the 2-day format we trialed in 2020 a couple times I thought was way better than the sprint format, and even I think it's better than the normal format we have. But yeah, I've never liked sprint races, never supported it, and it's delivered as expected. Really not much, and is worse in terms of entertainment, in my opinion, than qualifying. Vince says agreed on Logan. Other series cars are nothing like F1 cars. Prank says if anything, Logan has a better car than Gotifi did. Exactly, yeah. This Williams car this year has not been, it's not been amazing. But I mean, look at Albon. He's been in the top 10 a lot of times. Alex Albon is 13th in the championship on 21 points. So it's not like Logan can sit there and say, well, points are not possible in this car. They absolutely are. Albon has done it multiple times this season, and Albon has been in Q3 multiple times. So the excuse that, Latifi back in the day could have had, especially last year, isn't there for Logan, because this is the best Williams car we've seen, really, since what, 2017? Not as good as the 2017 car compared to where Williams were at that particular time, compared to their other midfield rivals. But yeah, it's the best Williams car we've seen in a while, and he is consistently under-delivered. Yanni says, same here, hate sprint races, silly nonsense for non-racing fans. Yeah, it's... I think I can't remember when it was. I don't know if it was earlier this season or last year, but I laid out exactly why we have sprint races, and it's because Liberty Media, they think, because they are trying to market Formula One to the widest possible audience and try and market it towards people that don't watch Formula One and maybe don't even watch motorsport. They think, and I guess they are right, that races are more exciting to watch if you're a casual or a newbie than qualifying is. And that's why they're pushing the sprint races, because they want to attract as many new people into Formula One as possible, because they want to grow Formula One, of course, as much as possible, increase the value as much as they can, to the point where it can't go any further up, and then sell it the highest bidder. That's really textbook American capitalism. And of course, they're an American company, so it's not, it's not a surprise what they're doing, but it's still disappointing nonetheless. And it does still bug me, especially with Stefano Domenicali and others, that run Formula One and are at Liberty Media, how they try to pretend that these things, that they're actually trying to improve Formula One, and it's actually for good reasons, when we all know it's purely for financial reasons. It has nothing to do with whether the product is actually better. It's purely to, increase viewership if they can. Obviously increases their, the size of their bank accounts. That's all it's about. And I would not be surprised if in the next 10, 15 years, Liberty Media sold Formula One, Saudi Arabia, or someone else. Wouldn't be surprised at all. As I think, actually, for a moment, before I read out any more comments, I'm just going to clear my throat, blow my nose a bit, because I'm not feeling great. So, and also, I'll have a drink as well. So I will be back with you guys in just a moment. Right, so hopefully that's okay for the moment. I will get onto your comments soon. What I want to do, though, quickly, as we've only got 30 minutes to go until qualifying, well, now 29 minutes, I just want to post the link of the stream out a couple more times, and then we'll get into your comments. Just quickly do that. Come join us here to watch along. Qualifying in Qatar. And I'll just post down Twitter as well. And I will quickly have a scan of Twitter to see if there is any news, breaking news that I can bring you guys going into this session. So let me do this tweet quickly. Look. Let's hit to along qualifying the GP, and right, there you go. So let me just have a quick look on Twitter. And can't see any Formula 1 stuff on my timeline, which is annoying. And yeah, can't see anything. So no or nothing to bring you guys in terms of news. Yeah. So let's come back to your comments in the chat. Prank says, I prefer quali mix-up more than sprints, i.e. hard, Q1, medium, Q2, etc. I mean, even though I don't like that alternate tyre allocation rule with the hard tyre only being used in Q1 and the medium in Q2, the soft in Q3, that is better than what we get in the sprint races, in my opinion. And I don't think it destroys the product of Formula 1 as much as sprint races do. I don't think it does as much damage, let's say, as sprint races. And I mean, with the alternate tyre allocation, you can kind of compare it to old qualifying rules in the past that we have had, which have been maybe a slight bit gimmicky, such as 20 years ago when we had a new qualifying system brought in where you only did one lap in qualifying, one shot qualifying, and you had to qualify on the fuel load you were going to start the race with, which I guess is kind of similar to the alternate tyre allocation in terms of mandating certain things when it comes to strategy and tyres and fuel to a degree, because of course when we have the alternate tyre allocation in place, the teams in qualifying Q1 and Q2 tend to run with a bit more fuel than they do normally. So yeah, it's at least you can say, well, it's not like we've had a it's not like this is a new thing in terms of a weird gimmicky change to the qualifying format. But yeah, I still don't even like that, the alternate tyre allocation. Yvonne says, hey Chazza, will Max win the championship this weekend? Yeah, 100%. Max Verstappen only needs 3 points this weekend to become champion. So if he finishes 6th in the sprint race tomorrow, he will be Drivers' World Champion for 2023. So yeah, the chances of him not winning the title this weekend are like 99%, or 99.9% arguably. Vince just saying, recovering from an illness myself the past week or so has been brutal, sick in bed and no F1 racing. Yeah, I think whatever I've had, because I know, what was it, last Sunday I did a stream, and I said, and I even delayed my stream by a few hours because I wasn't feeling physically great. And yeah, that later turned into a bit of a worse issue, and I had what I believe to be COVID, and haven't really. I mean, I normally do have a runny nose. I do have a cold quite a lot. I'm just one of those people that tends to have a cold more than other people. But yeah, over the last week, I've been coughing a lot more, and I've had some of the COVID symptoms. I haven't particularly myself, felt great, and I'm pretty sure I did catch it last week. So yeah, thankfully I'm over the worst of it, well over the worst of it, but still, remnants of it. Phonebot's chicken says I don't really care for sprint races either. The current Q1, 2, 3 system is my preferred format since I've started watching F1 in the early 1990s. Yeah. If you look at all of the qualifying systems we've had since, let's say, the early 90s, we've had how many different qualifying systems? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, about 6. And the Q1, Q2, Q3 system has proven to be the best. So, again, why change it? And that's been one of my biggest criticisms with Liberty Media, not just when it comes to them trying to fuck around with a qualifying format, but I do feel like they have been trying to play around or fix things that don't need fixing in Formula One. When it comes to, again, the alternate tyre allocation thing, nobody was asking for that. They were basically just, that decision to come up with that rule was basically based on them just saying, right, let's just do this rule and see if it adds anything to the show. There was no, I don't think there was any real legitimate basis behind it in terms of evidence that it would actually make things better. And I don't think, when you look at the qualifying sessions where we've had the alternate tyre allocation, I don't think there is evidence that it actually has made those particular sessions and weekends better or more exciting than they actually turned out to be. So, yeah. And that's one of my biggest criticisms with Liberty Media is they try to fix the wrong things, essentially. Saying that, it is good to see that with the 2026 regulations, we have heard more that they are going to be making the cars lighter and just smaller, narrower, and also eliminate a lot of the downforce on the cars to so the cars have a lot more mechanical grip, which is something I think earlier this year said needs to happen. The cars need to have a lot more mechanical grip, not just to create better racing, but also to make the cars a lot more interesting to watch on TV or trackside, because the cars at the moment, they're not, compared to other cars in history, they're not that hard to drive. They're still pretty easy compared to a lot of other eras. Obviously, driving a Formula One car is difficult no matter what era, but when you compare these cars to the cars in like 2015, 2016, these ones are so much easier to drive than those ones. So I am happy they are going to be removing, quite a bit of the downforce for 2026. And apparently the aim of the 2026 regulations with the aero rules is to make the cars lighter by 50 kilograms, which would be a very good step forward in making these cars better. Because these cars, not only are they too easy to drive, they way too heavy and wide. So yeah, it'd be great if they can deliver on that and get the cars a bit more back to how they were in the late 2000s, where they were a lot smaller, had a lot more mechanical grip, and they were way more exciting to watch on track than they are now. And one thing I have to say with that as well is I think the whole experiment in the last few years that we've seen since 2017 of making the cars have more downforce, more and more downforce, I think has not necessarily failed, but I don't think it's really made things as much better in terms of the cars and how they are to drive. I don't think it's made things much better and made things that much more exciting than it was previously. Compared to the era where we had a lot more mechanical grip with these cars. Obviously, the big obsession going into 2017 with those new rules where we had a lot more downforce added to the car was making the cars quicker, a lot quicker than they were before, but making them basically the quickest F1 cars we'd ever seen. And there was this whole weird obsession with what do you call it? With the cars need to be doing record-setting lap times, which at the time to me was silly, and it still is. That idea silly to me that these cars have to be the quickest F1 cars in history. No, they don't. No, they don't. Nobody in the late 2000s or the early 2010s gave a fuck that the cars were not record braking in terms of their speed. Nobody cared, because guess what? The action on track was so exciting, nobody cared. So the whole obsession with making the cars as quick as possible, that does not mean that it will make the racing and the entertainment better. It does not mean that at all. In fact, you could argue it means the opposite. So yeah, it's a good thing to see that they're going in that direction with the next generation of cars. Kama Jiu-Jitsu says, Chaz, I know you're not planning to do a live broadcast on the sprint race, but I urge you to reconsider. No one does play-by-play as well as you do. It's also great for your YouTube algorithm. Well, it's too late for me to reconsider because I've made plans for tomorrow. But I will be, like I said, I will be covering the sprint race in a couple of weeks' time in Austin, and then a couple of weeks after that's another sprint race in Brazil. I'll be covering those two. Don't worry, I'm not going to be giving the rest of the sprint races this season a miss, but I just don't think around this track it's going to be any good. That's why I missed the sprint race in Baku, because I thought the sprint race in Baku would be shit, and it was. So yeah, that's why I won't be covering the sprint at all. But yeah, don't worry, there's plenty of content coming on the channel. And of course, we've got this Grand Prix this weekend, and then a couple weeks break, and then we go into a triple header of the US Grand Prix, the Mexico City Grand Prix, and the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. So from the 19th of October until like the 5th of November, there is going to be a shit ton of content on this channel. So yeah, plenty more content coming your way. Don't worry about that. And of course, I put out a recorded video, I think, this time last week nearly. And there will be, hopefully, in the next couple months, at least a couple more recorded videos coming out as well. I'm not going to guarantee that. That's more of a hope than a guarantee. So, yeah. I am actually in the process right now of buying a new PC. The new PC I'm buying is going to be a clear upgrade on the one I've currently got. Because the one I've currently got has only got 8 gig of memory which is for what I need to do, put out better quality content is not enough. And yeah, that's why I'm going to be upgrading my PC to a 16 gig PC. And hopefully by the next Grand Prix in 2 weeks, I will have that new PC up and running. And what it will mean is, hopefully, the recorded videos will be better quality, but also the live streams, I will actually be able to stream in a higher frames per second than I do now. Because at the moment, I only stream in 20 frames per second. And the reason that is because my PC, if I streamed at 30 frames per second or more, it would probably crash. And yeah, this PC, it's not a bad PC, but it's just not enough for what I need to produce even better content. So that's why I'm getting a new PC very, very soon. And hopefully, if I can get it set up all well and there's no major issues, then it should be all good to produce better content, hopefully, for you guys for the rest of the season. And when it comes to upgrading my PC, this new PC has been really a long time coming, because this PC I've currently got is about 4 years old. About 4 years old. Yeah, about 4 years old. So really, I should have replaced it last year, but I didn't come to the conclusion this time last year that it needed replacing. I didn't really come to that conclusion until February, March of this year, that I needed to get a new PC to produce better content. So yeah, that will be coming very, very soon. Frank says we've had some great qualities this year. Absolutely. Let's hope we get a good one here. Say Regara says the only thing I prefer about the sprint races is I feel teams are too comfortable with practice sessions. For me, they're race cars, let them race. Phonebox Chicken says I would like smaller, lighter cars too. It may make tracks like Monaco slightly more watchable. Yeah, it would make, especially with the ability to follow another car these days, a lot better than they used to be. It should make the Monaco Grand Prix and the Singapore Grand Prix, even the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, should make those races more watchable and more interesting. But yeah, still another 2.5 years away from that. Prank says make the car smaller and double down on ground effect will give us closer racing. Josiah says I reckon Leclerc is going to get pole for some reason. Sparky Pete says Max better get P1. I've got 400 US on it. I'm a huge Lewis fan. Yeah, I'm a sellout, I know. Well, it is likely, so I can't exactly blame you for putting that bet on. Because there's like a 85-90% chance, I would say, that Max is going to get pole position. As we are just over 10 minutes away from the start of qualifying. Gotta say, it does feel still, to me, even though we've had the sprint race format for a couple years now, it still feels weird doing qualifying on a Friday. I'll never get used to it. For me, qualifying is proper Saturday afternoon, entertainment, and it belongs on a Saturday afternoon. It's It's something I'll never get used to. Kind of like in football when, the TV companies go for these mental kickoff times. Similar situation. It's something that personally I can't get used to. And I mean, back when I was watching Formula One when I was a lot younger, obviously it was always on a Saturday. Karim Chantok just doing some last minute analysis. The cars in practice 1. And, well, thankfully for the drivers, the grip level on track is still not going to be great, but it will be a lot better now than it was at the start of practice 1, where a lot of the drivers, they looked like they were out there in the wet. That's how That's how much of a lack of grip there was in first practice, especially at the start of first practice. It was like driving on ice in some corners, and so many cars all over the place. Yeah, Broom just showing on the Sky Pad on Sky F1. Lewis Hamilton going off in the final sector, which I think many people did. So it's not exactly necessarily a massively bad thing, given that everyone's struggling. But another thing as well to watch out for, which is going to confuse us to a degree, is in practice one, of course, the best lap time was a 1:27.3, I think, or a 1:27.4. That is a lot slower, that lap time, than what we're expecting pole position to be. So there is going to be a absolutely gigantic level of track evolution in this session. Possibly the biggest you've ever seen. It really could be that big. So if anyone does, at the end of Q1, Q2, or Q3, if they don't get their best lap together, they will really suffer today. And it will obviously hurt not their entire weekend, but it will hurt their race quite a bit. Max Verstappen is just getting his gear on, getting ready to get out there and take a first pole position, it would be, in Qatar. I know Red Bull have won so many races this season and so many races in the last couple of years, basically. But, of course, they have never won in Qatar. Even though we've only had one Qatar Grand Prix, they were second a couple of years ago with Max Verstappen. So at least there is a bit of motivation there to try and, get their first win in Qatar, because you never know when their dominance could end. Josiah saying, "Nah, you ain't no sellout. Money is hard to come by these days. Make your dough, fam." Yeah, no issue with that at all. And of course, some people out there do think that, very weird to me, this thought that like betting is something that I wouldn't say people out there think it's immoral, but I know there's a lot of campaigning out there to try and get rid of betting sponsorships for certain sports teams and sports leagues and stuff like that, but I don't see betting as big of an issue as other people see it as. So yeah, no problem, of course, if you guys do that. Anyway, let me just go back onto Twitter and see if there's any quick news before qualifying. Yeah, can't see anything at the moment. Yeah, there's no news really at all. And also, one thing I've definitely realized the last, and I don't know if it's because of how good the race was in Singapore a few weeks ago, but since then there's been a real downturn in excitement or motivation to watch and enjoy Formula One, because I feel like people at this point are just desperate for the season to end, which I can fully understand, because there isn't really anything left to compete for. And of course, we haven't had that many great races this season, and we're probably not going to get, any great races maybe between now and the end of the season. So, yeah, I definitely feel that already within the F1 community. There's a real this desperation to get the season over and done with and get on to 2024, where maybe, you never know, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren could maybe close the gap to Red Bull, but realistically, I don't see that happening. As just myself quickly, as we're only 4 minutes away, guys, from qualifying getting underway. I will read out quickly a couple final comments in the chat if I can. Regara earlier saying, to be honest, Max Verstappen will sail straight to the top 10 all time tomorrow night. Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, 3-time world champion. Imagine that'd make him an automatic entry. But of course, remember, Nelson Piquet is a 3-time world champion. Yet I don't think really anyone considers him to be in their top 10 all-time drivers. So, yeah, being a 3-time champion does not automatically get you in, but I am probably going to do, whether it's a stream or a video, I don't know when, but probably before the 2024 season, I am going to do some sort of content on where, at the moment, does Max Verstappen sit on the all-time list. He won't be in, the top 3, top 4. I can tell you that now, because it's way too early to put him up there. But, yeah, it'll be an interesting bit of content to do as the session will be underway in a couple of minutes' time. Let me just quickly mute myself, blow my nose once again, and then we'll get into this session for proper. Right, so hopefully that'll be okay for the next few minutes. But let me hide that timer. And before we get into the session, let's get into a couple things quickly. So these are the championship standings before this all-important qualifying session in Qatar. Max Verstappen, 177 points clear of Sergio Perez. He only needs to score 3 points this weekend to become world champion. So really does need pole position here in the, to secure pole position for the race, just in case tomorrow in the sprint he ends up having a poor showing. And then you've got Sergio Perez in second, Hamilton not too far behind in third, only 33 points behind, Alonso 16 points behind, Hamilton in fourth, and then you've got Sainz in fifth, Leclerc sixth, Norris in seventh, level on points with Russell eighth. Norris ahead because he's had a better best race result. And then you've got Piastri ninth and Lance Stroll in 10th. Of course, Red Bull already constructors champions. Mercedes in second, only 20 points clear of Ferrari with Aston Martin fourth. McLaren very quickly catching in fifth. Alpine is sixth with Williams seventh, Haas eighth, Alfa Romeo ninth, and AlphaTauri 10th. And a quick reminder of my qualifying prediction for this session. I think it will be Verstappen on pole, with Norris second, Piastri third, Perez in fourth, and then Sainz fifth, Hamilton sixth, Leclerc seventh, Russell eighth, Alonso ninth, and Tsunoda 10th. That's my prediction. Let's find out if it will be true or not. And obviously, Q1, an 18-minute long session. I'll get the timer up in a moment when we actually get started. But one thing I will do quickly is get the dotted line out to indicate where the cutoff zone is. So let me just do this quickly. And there you go. So obviously everyone below that dotted line at the end of Q1 will be out of the session. And I will sync up the timer for Q1 at the 17-minute mark, which will be, of course, a minute into first qualifying, as the Red Bull there Max Verstappen coming out of the garage, and let's see what Verstappen can do. Both Red Bulls coming out, and a lot of people coming out very early as the green light is on at the exit of the pit lane. And Verstappen already out on track. Perez very slowly coming out behind him, kind of blocking the drivers behind to give Max the space. And unfortunately, they've not put the timer on screen yet, so I can't tell you guys whether we've got to the 17-minute mark or yet. But we are currently looking at Max Verstappen, who I think actually is the second car in with the two Red Bulls, and we're about to get to the 17-minute mark. And there you go. 17 minutes to go in Q1. And let's hope for an exciting qualifying session today. As we're just seeing a replay of the Alpines getting very close to each other in the pit lane. And one of the Alpines struggling to turn into the pit lane. Ocon very close to hitting the pit wall, which would have been embarrassing. Of course, we had... Who was it? Was it Verstappen? I think it was. Verstappen broke his front wing, hitting the pit wall a few races ago. And talking of Verstappen, he's just firing his tyres up and coming into the final corner now. Yeah, the best time of the weekend so far, a 1:27.4. Let's see what they can do straight out of the blocks in Q1. The Ferrari there waits for Max Verstappen to go through, and Max does. Car looks absolutely fine through there. And yeah, Red Bull looks hooked up as usual. And you have to think, with the track being, a low grip surface, that will suit Red Bull even more than the other teams, because it will allow them to show their superiority in terms of grip. As Max does a purple first sector. Now, coming into the middle sector through turn 8, turn 9, which is a brilliant corner. Now, goes through turn 10. And he's got a couple cars ahead of him, an Aston Martin and a Ferrari. Not sure which Aston Martin or Ferrari, as they're pretty close to one another, those two cars. As the Ferrari, I think it was of Leclerc, gets out of the way. As he now passes the Aston Martin into the final corner as Sergio Perez goes quickest. So Perez quickest, and Max Verstappen goes now quickest on a 1:26.8. So 0.6 of a second quicker than he went in practice 1. Valtteri Bottas up to second. Perez did a very slow time for 1:28.4. As Lawson is up to 4th. And then you've got Lance Stroll up to 3rd. Alonso, by the way, has done a purple first and second sector. Looking good for Aston Martin so far. As Kevin Magnussen goes 4th for the Haas team. There you go. Now, Yuki Tsunoda goes up to 4th place. As Fernando Alonso does go quickest by a 1/10.5 over Max Verstappen. So Alonso quickest for Aston Martin. Alonso, of course, looked pretty good in practice 1. So Alonso P1, Verstappen 2nd. Ocon goes up to 3rd. Let me just quickly do that. Ocon third. Gasly now goes second. Of course, remember he started this race 2 years ago in second place. So it's Alonso, Gasly, Verstappen, Ocon, and then Carlos Sainz has only gone 5th quickest. And Leclerc now goes quickest for Ferrari by 0.3 of a second. Brilliant lap by Charles Leclerc. And he is now at the top of the timesheets as Lando Norris now goes quickest with an even better lap. 0.4 of a second quicker than Leclerc, a 1:26.0 from Lando Norris. So let me just update that quickly as we're seeing a replay of Max and the traffic he had to deal with and him moaning on the radio saying, nice, who is this? And it was the Aston Martin was Alonso and the Ferrari, I think, was Leclerc. Actually, no, it wasn't an Aston Martin. It was a Mercedes. I think of Hamilton, possibly. I'm not sure. Lando Norris has had his time deleted. So Lando all the way back down now. And Charles Leclerc now is quickest for Ferrari on a 1:26.4. That's Leclerc, Alonso, Piastri is up to third. And then you've got Gasly 4th, Verstappen 5th. Albon is up to 6th as Max is on a new lap and has done the best first sector of anyone. So Albon not in 6th anymore because Sergio Perez has improved and gone up to 6th place. Then it's Albon in 7th as Max Verstappen only goes 2nd, 0.5 tenth slower than Leclerc. Interesting. As here's Liam Lawson coming into the final corner now. And a better lap. Where will he go? Will he go ahead of his teammate who's 0.8 of a second quicker? Yes, he does by about 1/4 of a second. So it is Leclerc, Verstappen, Alonso, Piastri, Gasly, Perez, Albon, Ocon, and then Lance Stroll 9th. With Carlos Sainz in 10th place. And then you've got Logan Sargent in 11th. With Bottas 12th. As not 12th anymore because Yuki Tsunoda has improved up to 5th place. As Fernando Alonso goes quickest for Aston Martin by 0.75 of a second. What a lap that is by Alonso. A 1:25.6. As Ocon goes second. So yeah, you can see the track evolution really getting going now. So it's Alonso from Ocon and then Leclerc, Verstappen, Piastri, Tsunoda, Gasly, Sargent now into the top 10 in 8th place. Then Perez, Albon, Stroll, Sainz, Bottas, Lawson is 14th with Magnussen 15th. And then in the drop zone, you've got Norris, Hamilton, Zhou, Hülkenberg and Russell. But Norris has had his time deleted from before. And Lando actually coming back into the pit lane. So not happy with that lap he was on. And yeah, Russell, Hamilton and Hülkenberg are on an out lap currently. As someone has had a lap time deleted. Who was it? Couldn't quite. Was it Albon? Might have been. Or so. Who was it? Someone just had their lap time deleted. I can't see who it was. But it is. All right. So that's what's happened. Carlos Sainz has gone up the order. That's why the order has shifted. So Carlos Sainz is now 5th. And then it's Piastri 6th, Tsunoda 7th, and then Gasly, Sargent, Perez, then Albon, Stroll, Bottas, Lawson, Magnussen. But, yeah. That is your current order with 8.5 minutes to go in qualifying 1. And by the way, good to see Rook in the chat. Hope you're well, mate. Great to see you all, of course. And I know, obviously, qualifying taking place at a peculiar time compared to how it normally is, but great to have you along anyway. As Nico Hulkenberg is on a flyer, Ocon complaining that it's very hot in his car, probably because of the flaming hot lap he just did, where he put it up to second place. And yeah, the drivers, though, a lot of the drivers now come back into the pits. When they get back out there, they're going to have to make sure they really execute the best laps possible, because if you don't, like I said earlier, if you don't get your final laps right, with this track evolution, you could be in serious trouble. As Nico Hulkenberg, with his first lap of qualifying, only goes 12th. Proving what I've been saying, that I don't think Haas have got really anywhere near a quick enough car today to really be featuring in the action, as Kevin Magnussen goes up to 14th. Valtteri Bottas improves up to second place in the Alfa Romeo. What a lap by Valtteri, as George Russell now goes second. Let's just see what Lewis Hamilton does. Hamilton goes third. So Mercedes now second and third. So let me just update that. Now we've got almost everyone having done a proper lap time. So Lewis Hamilton is in third place. And yeah, with 6 minutes to go in Q1, it is your top 10. It's Alonso, Russell, Hamilton, Bottas, Ocon, Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Piastri, Tsunoda. And currently in the drop zone, Stroll, Zhou, Lawson, Magnussen, and Norris. Lando Norris, though, in 20th. He has not done a proper lap time. He did do a 1:26.0, but it was deleted for a track limit violation at turn 5. So, yeah, if Lando had kept that lap time, then he'd be currently in, what, 3rd or 4th place. So there's definitely easily enough pace there in the McLaren. Getting to Q2 as Alex Albon has had his lap time deleted, and Albon has dropped into the drop zone. So Albon now 17th. And behind his teammate currently. Logan Sargent in 12th with 5 minutes to go in Q1. And yeah, Alex Albon is in big trouble. He is on an outlap, but he's got to get these final couple laps right, or else this will be a real disaster for him. Sergio Perez on a new flying lap. Of course, Perez must improve. He's only 13th. As Perez is just coming through the heart of the middle sector. Now has basically completed the middle sector. As Leclerc goes quickest on a 1:25.4. So Leclerc up to P1. Surely that will be good enough to get into Q2. As Lando Norris has not done the greatest first sector. As Sergio Perez through the final corner to the line. And it's 4th place, which is not too bad, but I think he might have to do another lap if he's going to make sure of getting into Q2, because it wasn't a great lap. That from Perez, as Lando Norris does a purple middle sector and is currently 0.2 of a second up on Leclerc's best time. Surely Norris will go first or second with this time, as Lando Norris, yep, a 1:25.1, and Lando Norris goes quickest. as Liam Lawson has just popped up to 13th. I'll update that right now. Liam Lawson up to 13th place. We've got... Who else has improved? Oscar Piastri has just gone up to 4th place for McLaren. We've got... Who else? We've got Logan Sargent up to 9th place for Williams. As Carlos Sainz improves to 5th. Max Verstappen now down to 13th as Yuki Tsunoda goes up to 8th. And you got Hamilton, well, he was in 9th. Esteban Ocon has now improved. And Ocon into the top 6 as Alonso goes 2nd. Yeah, Gasly now goes 6th for Alpine. As Max Verstappen goes to the top of the timesheets on a 1:25.007. So Verstappen should, you'd think, be safe now. With 2 minutes to go in Q1. So it's Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz. Your top 6 is a replay of Sargent. And don't know if that will... If him going almost off the track, there might be a lap time deletion. Looks like he'll be just about okay. And Lando cutting it fine on the exit of turn 5. As that's a replay of Gasly having quite a moment. I think towards the end of the lap. And here is Magnussen in turn 15. All over the place and currently in last. We know Magnussen has struggled a lot in qualifying this year. Yeah, that would have definitely been a exceeding track limits. Yeah, the current top 10 it is Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz, Gasly, Ocon, Russell, Perez. And then you've got Tsunoda 11th, Hamilton 12th, Bottas 13th, Sargent 14th, Albon only 15th. Would have expected more than that. And then in the drop zone, guys, with nearly half a minute to go, Liam Lawson 16th, Hulkenberg 17th, Stroll 18th, Zhou 19th, and Magnussen in 20th. Can those 5 make it into Q2? Kevin Magnussen is on a better lap, but it's not at the minute looking good enough to get him into the second part of qualifying. This looks like this will probably put him up to 16th or 17th place, which of course is not good enough. As he comes through the final corner now, as the checkered flag falls now. And Kevin Magnussen to the line, only 17th. He is out in Q1 yet again. Valtteri Bottas goes 11th. As Lawson stays in 16th. That is so disappointing for Lawson. Hamilton finishes up in 13th and doesn't improve. He could be at serious risk here as Nico Hulkenberg goes up to 9th for Haas F1. Piastri improves up to 4th. As Logan Sargent has finished in 15th. Lance Stroll currently 19th. Can he make it into the second part of qualifying? As he comes to the line now. And no, Lance Stroll is out in Q1. We're not surprised, but he is out as George Russell goes up to 5th. Ocon up to 7th. As here comes Alex Albon. He's the last man in the bottom 5 that can do anything about his position. Through the final corner he comes as Gasly goes up to 7th. Is Albon into Q2? He is. He's knocked his teammate out by about 1/10 of a second. And Alexander Albon is in to the second part of qualifying. And by the way, Lewis Hamilton, very, very lucky to get into Q2 because he didn't improve that final lap. Thankfully for him, the drivers in the bottom 5 couldn't go any quicker. As Hamilton ends up in 14th place and only got through into Q2 by, I think, 1/10 or 1/10 and a half. Yeah, lucky are Mercedes and Hamilton to get through to the second part of qualifying. But that is Q1, guys, over and done with. Let's go through the drivers that are making it into the second part of qualifying. Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Fernando Alonso, Oscar Piastri, George Russell, Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hulkenberg, Sergio Perez, Valtteri Bottas, Yuki Tsunoda, Lewis Hamilton, and Alexander Albon. And knocked out, guys, in Q1, Logan Sargent, Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson, Kevin Magnussen, and Zhou Guanyu. And let's now get prepped for Q2. I have to say, though, Logan Sargent, even though he got knocked out in Q1, that is a much better performance by him. Only a 1/10 of a second slower in Q1. And very close to out-qualifying his teammate for the first time this season. So, yeah, that's a much better effort from Logan. Good to see. Lance Stroll knocked out in Q1. As I said a minute or so ago, we're not surprised, are we? I am disappointed about Lawson in 18th. I don't think he has raced around here before, so maybe that's why he's just struggling with the, finding the limit at this track and struggling with how the track is. But 18th is disappointing given where AlphaTauri should be. Zhou Guanyu, I have to say, horrendous performance in 20th place compared to where Valtteri Bottas ended up in P12. And obviously, once again, bad from Magnussen. Out in Q1 yet again. The biggest thing, though, to take away from that session is not Red Bull, McLaren, Aston Martin. It's Alpine. 7th and 8th, and they were consistently quick through the entire of Q1. So I'm just wondering, have Alpine secretly been hiding quite a fast car? We're going to find out in these next, 40 minutes or so. But that was a very good session for Alpine. They were comfortably in the top 10 with both cars, which is good to see. Anyway, let me get another dotted line in place. And there you go. So, of course, anyone between those two dotted lines at the end of Q2 will be out of the session. And reminder, by the way, there is a poll currently running in the live chat. And it will keep running until the end of Q2, which will be in about 15 minutes or 20 minutes time. And what I've asked you guys is, who is most likely to challenge Max Verstappen for pole position at the Qatar Grand Prix? The options are Leclerc, Hamilton, Norris, and Piastri. Let me know out of those 4 drivers, who is most likely to fight Max Verstappen for pole, as Lance Stroll looking pretty unhappy after being knocked out there. And him, is he getting physical there with one of his engineers? That looked quite bad with Stroll. Where maybe it was that, or maybe I don't know. Maybe he punched the side of one of the walls they have in there. But he definitely was getting physical with something in the garage there after the elimination. As incident involving Tsunoda, Lawson, and Piastri noted failing to follow race director's instructions about the maximum lap time. I'll let you guys know about that. We'll see what happens with that later on, of course. But yeah, Lance Stroll has been horrendous this season. He has been, and I know I criticised De Vries a lot when he was, racing earlier this season. But Stroll has been comfortably worse than De Vries. Not even, for me, it's not even close at this point. Lance has been that bad. He's been, for me, comfortably the worst driver this season. Even worse than Logan Sargent. And, yeah, just finding out now on Twitter, Alonso in Q1 was 1.1 seconds quicker than Stroll. This is the same Fernando Alonso, by the way, who is not renowned for being super quick on a qualifying lap. He's not, it's not Lewis Hamilton or Ayrton Senna. So, yeah. It's still... It does amaze me to a degree just how piss poor he's been. And how piss poor he continues to be. McLaren from race saying the toys are thrown out of the Aston pram. Daddy needs to change the family surname to Sprint. Yeah, anyway. Let's get into the second part of qualifying here. And, what do you call it? The session has begun. Of course, I will sync up the timer at the 14-minute mark. Q2, obviously 15 minutes long. As we've got a Ferrari, I think both Ferraris, the first two cars on track. They've actually gone past the 14-minute mark now. So I'll have to sync up at the 13-minute mark instead. But, yeah, cars just filtering onto track. And the best time we saw in Q1 was what, a 1:25.0. So that is the lap time to keep your eyes on, guys, going into Q2 as to how quick certain teams are going in this session. As we're looking at Piastri in the McLaren. Just entering the final sector on his outlap. The final sector is definitely easily my favourite part of the track, as there you go. 13 minutes left in Q2. Yeah, especially if anyone has the F1 game, make sure you drive the Qatar track. It is so enjoyable to drive. That final sector especially as well, if you're during a race and you, like, I don't know, you do some sort of strategy where you're on fresh tyres compared to your rivals, it's so fun to, like do an undercut around this track because you gain just a stupid amount of time. Anyway, let's get into the real life stuff as Piastri begins his first attempt at making Q3. And Piastri definitely this season has marked himself down amongst his rivals as a qualifying specialist and someone definitely to watch out for on a well, normally on a Saturday, but this weekend on a Friday. As Piastri lap looks okay so far. And yeah, his lap, yeah, it just looks okay. Nothing special. Nothing is standing out about this lap. Looks really more like a banker lap than anything. Passes a low Red Bull there. It is clearly on an outlap. As Piastri through the final sector now, where the McLaren should be at its best. As Piastri now into the final corner. And Oscar Piastri goes quickest on a 1:25.7. Not sure that's as quick as he went in Q1, so definitely could do better, but it is Piastri quickest. Max Verstappen only went, well, now he's third, behind Piastri and Carlos Sainz. As Alonso clearly has made a mistake on his lap and he's backed off. As Leclerc's done a good first sector. So it is currently Piastri, Sainz, Bottas now up to third. So Max's lap clearly was not nowhere near a good lap as Ocon now goes fourth. Norris only fifth with Verstappen. Also Verstappen, I think, has Has he done a lap time or not? I don't think he has, actually. No, he hasn't. I was thinking he hasn't. I was thinking maybe he hasn't done a lap, and yeah, that is the case. As Charles Leclerc goes quickest by 0.4 of a second on a 1:25.3, which is, I think, slightly quicker than he went in Q1. As Pierre Gasly now goes quickest for Alpine on a 1:25.2. It's Gasly, Leclerc, Piastri. Hulkenberg impressively has gone up to 4th place. As Max Verstappen blows the rest out of the park and goes quickest on a 1:24.7, 4.5 quicker than Gasly. So Verstappen, it is from Gasly, Leclerc, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Bottas. As Yuki Tsunoda goes up to 4th place for AlphaTauri. Very good lap. As Lando Norris, who I think cocked up his first attempt, has decided to come back in. And I'm guessing this is maybe why. There's nothing really in that. Showing a replay there of Lando potentially being blocked by the AlphaTauri of Tsunoda, but I don't think there's really anything in that. Plus, Norris wasn't even pushing. So, yeah, don't really know why we're seeing a replay of it. Sergio Perez goes only 5th in the Red Bull. So, as George Russell has done a purple middle sector and comes to the line and goes 2nd, only 0.2 of a second slower than Max Verstappen. As here is Lewis Hamilton, who goes 3rd, nearly 1/4 of a second slower than his teammate. Russell does seem, so far this weekend, to have the edge on Lewis Hamilton. So it's Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, and then Gasly, Alonso, Leclerc, Perez. Hold on, let me correct the order. So yeah, Gasly 4th, because on my end it's not correct. So yeah, Gasly 4th, Alonso 5th, Leclerc 6th, Perez 7th, Tsunoda 8th, Piastri 9th, Hulkenberg 10th, Sainz only 11th, and then Bottas 12th. And we're waiting now for a real lap time from Ocon, Norris, and Albon. Ocon and Albon, though, are on good laps as Esteban to the line. Where does he go? 9th, which is really not good because Gasly a lot quicker on that particular occasion as Alex Albon goes 10th. So Ocon is 9th and Albon is 10th. I would be surprised a lot if Williams made it into Q3. We have, of course, seen stranger things happen. So with almost 6.5 minutes to go in Q2, the drivers on their way into Q3 are Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Gasly, Alonso, Leclerc, Perez, Tsunoda, Ocon, and Albon. And then in the drop zone, it's Piastri, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Bottas, Norris. Norris has not done a proper lap time, though, so we await to see what he can do. And Carlos Sainz already on an outlap, so is Piastri and Leclerc. So clearly they feel as though they can go a lot quicker than they did previously. As Sainz about to start a new flying lap. Kama says, I wonder if you would lobby for Crofty's job when the Apple deal starts. You can't let them censor you, though. You have moments that are funny as fuck. I mean, obviously, it'd be great if Apple took over from Sky in terms of the coverage. But, yeah, I'd be massively surprised if I had the main commentary gig for Formula 1 in the UK. Very surprised at that. But, hey, you never know what could happen. Future, I mean, Sky their current TV deal is until the end of the current decade, so a long way to go until we see a different service providing the coverage. As Carlos Sainz has done an improved first sector, but then he's ran wide at turn 7 and he's backed off again on his lap, so that is a disaster. Or is it Leclerc? I think it's Leclerc actually, or is it both? I don't know. I should have paid a bit more attention to the. Right, so it was both of them. They both backed off. Yes, Sainz in turn 7 ran wide, went to turn in, and the car just didn't have the grip to live with him. And yeah, Leclerc further behind at turn 4. Also losing the rear end of the car and going off. So both Ferraris struggling with their first laps. And that's not going to help because, of course, an extra lap on those tyres, it's going to make their next proper flying laps slower than they could potentially go. So Ferrari definitely at a disadvantage for these final 4 minutes of Q2. As Oscar Piastri has done a better first sector. So has Lando Norris. As Piastri looking a lot better than the Ferrari did through turns 7 and 8. And in general, the McLaren looks a lot better than the Ferrari in the middle part of the lap and even towards the end of the lap. As, yeah, Oscar looking good and looks like he's probably going to go maybe 3rd, 4th, something like that. Lando Norris, though, on a brilliant lap. He's done a purple middle sector, and this is definitely going to get him up into the top 3. As here comes Oscar Piastri. Where will he go? As Piastri goes quickest by 0.03 of a second. What a final sector from Piastri. Lando Norris now goes a further 0.04 of a second quicker. McLaren had both cars in the drop zone, and now they're first and second with almost 2.5 minutes to go in Q2. So let me just, hold on, let me just quickly correct that. So it is Piastri second. So Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Gasly, Alonso, Leclerc, Perez, Tsunoda are the drivers currently on their way into Q3. And in the drop zone, Ocon, Albon, Hülkenberg, Sainz and Bottas as Leclerc on a second lap does not do a great final sector and he only goes 5th. And I do fear for Leclerc if that's really all he's got, because you would expect a big improvement from drivers behind such as Hamilton, Alonso, Perez, Sainz as well. Leclerc could be in big trouble if the other drivers behind gain a lot of time, as Verstappen here being blocked quite a lot on, I think, an outlap. As Max saying, what is he doing, man? He is defending. Do you see that? I almost crashed into him. And yeah, don't know what driver that was, what Ferrari driver, but whoever it was driving very silly. I don't know if it was Carlos Sainz. It might have been. And talking of Carlos Sainz, he's just completed the first sector on what is going to be his final lap of Q2. Will it be good enough to get him into Q3? Bottas has done a decent first sector. Slightly quicker than Tsunoda, who is the driver most at risk in 10th. As Carlos into turn 12. Oh, Carlos right on the edge of grip. There was a couple moments there where I thought the car was going to snap on him. Not looking great, but it might still be good enough to get him into Q3. As Bottas has done a brilliant middle sector as Max Verstappen returns to the top of the timesheets on a 1:24.4, 0.2 of a second quicker than McLaren. Carlos Sainz only goes 9th. Surely that won't be good enough, as here comes Hülkenberg, who only goes 11th. Valtteri Bottas goes 9th. He's got ahead of Carlos Sainz. And that pushes Sergio Perez into the drop zone, who now goes up to 9th place. Carlos Sainz is out in Q2. A disaster for Ferrari, as Yuki Tsunoda has not had a great final lap here, as Hulkenberg has dropped down to 15th now. He's had his lap time deleted. The Hulkenberg in 15th. Tsunoda only 11th. But he does get ahead of Sainz, as we've still got Ocon and Albon to complete a lap, as Pierre Gasly up to 4th. What a session he's having. Of course, was great here a couple years ago. Esteban Ocon, 5th for Ocon. What a final lap, and both Alpines comfortably into Q3. George Russell is up to 4th. And Hamilton goes quickest, and that has put Sergio Perez out in Q2. What an absolute shocker, as Albon has a shocker at the penultimate corner and has blown his lap. And Albon also out in Q2, as somebody had, their time deleted, and I think it was Sergio Perez. As who else improved there at the end? Oh yeah, Lewis Hamilton. He went quickest on a 1:24.3. But let me just do the final order quickly. That was a crazy end to Q2. And yeah, there you go. So Q2 over and done with. Here are the drivers on their way to the shootout of Q3. Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, George Russell, Pierre Gasly, Esteban Ocon, both Alpines through. What a session for them compared to what we expected. Charles Leclerc 8th, Fernando Alonso 9th, Valtteri Bottas. What a brilliant effort to get into Q3. Nobody saw that coming. And then knocked out in Q2, Yuki Tsunoda, the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, and the Red Bull of Sergio Perez in 13th place, with Alex Albon 14th and Nico Hulkenberg in 15th. Oh my God. How bad was that from Perez? 13th. Even I thought if he had a poor session today, it wouldn't be quite that bad. I honestly thought getting eliminated in Q2 probably was not possible for Perez. But that is an unbelievably poor showing from Sergio Perez. And yet again is knocked out in Q2 in 2023. Absolutely horrendous from Perez. Poor from Sainz as well. Ferrari, I've got to say, their car has not looked very good today in qualifying. It's looked unstable, quite a bit more unstable than the McLaren, the Red Bull, even the Mercedes. So, yeah, Ferrari have really not been good today. But, yeah, Sainz out in 12th. Poor from Sainz, but Sergio Perez especially. Shocking from Perez. And if he keeps this up, I know they've said that they'll keep him for next year. We know from the past that Red Bull, they can say one thing and do another. You know, famously, they said they were going to keep Gasly for the rest of 2019 a few years ago. And then, 3 or 4 days later, they sacked him. So, if he keeps this up, then I would not be surprised whatsoever if Sergio Perez found himself without a drive. Because this is horrendous from Perez. The worst I think we've seen from him. But Q3 we're about to get into, which of course will be underway in a couple minutes' time. Before we get into it though, let me just quickly do a couple things. One, let me finish up the poll in the chat that's been running for a couple hours now. And I asked you guys, who is most likely to challenge Max Verstappen for pole position at the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix? 170 votes, and Charles Leclerc, surprisingly, won the vote with 44% of the vote. Norris second, Hamilton third, and Piastri fourth. Thank you guys for voting in that poll. In my view, I think Norris is most likely, but yeah, I am surprised still that Leclerc won that vote. But quickly, before we get any further into qualifying, as just a replay here of what happened with Stroll earlier. And I think they're just showing a slow-mo, and I think that's what happened. He shoved. Yeah, he did. He shoved an Aston Martin engineer into the wall. Because there's an engineer trying to like keep him cool, calm him down. The door opened to go to the back of the garage, and Lance literally threw him out of the way. And I can tell by his interview, his head is extremely hot because he's only giving like 2 or 3 word answers. And yeah, that was a droppy fucking interview from Lance Stroll. Well, I think we all need what. Sorry. Let me just clear my throat before I say what I'm going to say. I think we all know what he needs. He needs one, a bollocking. As we're just seeing another replay a bit. And no idea what the engineer said to him, but surely it couldn't have been bad enough to literally throw him into a wall. But yeah, one thing he does need is a bollocking, because you can't be doing that to your team members. Nobody is going to like you if you do that. And, well, the other thing he needs is sacking, because he is performing like absolute shit. He has got to Nikita Mazepin levels of shit, has Lance Stroll. Anyway. Just wanted to update you guys about the next 2 pieces of content on the channel after tonight's stream. So, again, I won't be covering the sprint race tomorrow, but I will be back for the race watch-along on Sunday live from 4 PM UK time. That's 2 hours before the race starts for the race preview and the race watch-along. And then, of course, we'll be doing a weekend review live on Monday night at 8 PM UK time. So, make sure to come along to that content if you can. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. As we're seeing why Sergio Perez really got eliminated from Q2. He exceeded track limits. That's why he got dropped down into the drop zone. And yeah, make sure as well, if you are, what do you call it? For everybody watching, make sure to smash the like button if you haven't already. 34 likes, we can definitely do better than that. Let's try and get up to 50 likes if we can by the end of this stream. That'd be great if we could. Frank says Lance is many things, but a tough guy is not one. Yeah, there's got to be some sort of punishment for that. Because if he, if Lawrence, his father, who of course runs the team, if he's allowing his son to do that, then it's going to create tension and a divide in the team. Because people, other people on the team, they'll see that and they'll think, well, if he doesn't get punished for that, then, then it creates a... I mean, anyone watching will know if you've worked a real job. If you see someone do something that is wrong and they don't get properly punished for it, it does make you distrust the people running the people running the job you're working at. So they've got to punish him, have the team. Because if they don't, it will create a divide in the team. So yeah, hopefully that's what they do. We've said it on stream before. Lawrence has to decide how serious he is about winning championships, because if he is serious, then he can't have Lance Stroll at the team, because Lance is nowhere near good enough to be, at the minute, given his current performance, he's nowhere near good enough to be a Formula 1 driver. Never mind an Aston Martin driver. So, yeah, Q3 has started. We're on the out laps currently. And, yeah. 10 minutes now to go in the final part of qualifying. Let's see who will take pole position in Qatar. Surely, in my view, will be Max Verstappen, but you never know what can happen, especially under very dusty and tricky Lusail circuit here in Qatar. As Charles Leclerc begins his first attempt at pole position. Leclerc has not had pole position for a race since, I think, Baku. I think it was. Oh my, the rear end really snapped on him there into turn 4, and he did very well to save it. Brilliant save from Leclerc, showing his skill, and thankfully kept the car from spinning off into the gravel and the wall, and Leclerc has had to back off on that lap. And now his engineer needs to get busy and tell him to get out of the way of cars behind that are very quickly approaching him. Because you've got Alonso and Norris coming up behind him who are on flying laps. Here comes Alonso as Lando Norris has done a purple first sector. And yeah, Leclerc thankfully gets out of the way of Alonso. Hamilton gets out of the way of Alonso as well. As Alonso having a pretty good day, especially compared to his teammate. As Lando does a purple middle sector, so Lando looking good compared to Alonso, but who knows how he'll look compared to Verstappen. As Alonso to the line does a 1:25.2, which is, well, not very quick. Valtteri Bottas is second on a 1:25.5. Lando Norris does a 1:24.0. What a time that is at the start of Q3. So Norris has had his time deleted. Crucial. That could be in the fight for pole as Piastri goes quickest, but it's a 24.5. One a bit slower than Norris went on that now deleted lap as Ocon goes up to second for Alpine. As Max Verstappen to the line. Oh, what a time that is. A 1:23.7. 3/4 of a second quicker than Piastri. And it still would have been 0.3 quicker than Norris's best lap from a minute or so ago. George Russell goes second. He's on to the front row for now. As Lewis Hamilton through the final few corners as Pierre Gasly goes up to 6th. As, yeah, Esteban Ocon as well. Got to shout him out. He's up in, well, was 4th place, now 5th as Lewis Hamilton puts himself onto the front row of the grid. Mercedes have got a lot more pace today than I expected, which is great to see as Leclerc with the second lap, only 5th. Definitely not good enough. As Lando Norris now in the pits, despite not doing an actual lap time, as his first time was deleted for track limit violations. So, with one final run to go in qualifying, it is Max Verstappen on pole position. From Lewis Hamilton 2nd, George Russell 3rd, Piastri 4th, Leclerc 5th, Ocon 6th, Alonso 7th, Gasly 8th, Bottas 9th, and Norris in 10th. And we've just seen a replay of Leclerc losing the rear end at turn 4, as he did earlier. And the key for Leclerc is he's got to make sure the final lap he doesn't qualify, he's got to make sure that he doesn't have to do a second attempt. Because if he has to do it again, then again he won't gain as much time on his flying lap as he could with as fresh a tyres as possible. So he can't afford for that to happen again as, oh dear. Leclerc losing the rear end really bad, even at turn, I think 10 that was. Yeah, that Ferrari all over the place. And yeah, Max Verstappen currently on pole by half a second from Lewis Hamilton. But who expected, honestly, Mercedes to be second and third going into the final run of qualifying? I don't think anyone did. But it is likely still to change around. Lando Norris, we know, can go a lot quicker. Maybe Piastri can. Leclerc, I think, can. Alonso probably could. Maybe even the Alpines. So there is still a long way to go. 4.5 more minutes in this session. As here's a replay of Norris and how he extended the track limits at turn 5 like he did earlier. It's a pretty easy thing to do, but we know obviously he can do better than that. So let me just have a quick look on Twitter to see if there's any news. I can see people calling out Lance Stroll, rightfully so, for what he's done there. And yeah, everyone going in on Stroll on social media. And yeah, deservedly so, because as frustrated as he may be, there is, and like I said, there is no way that whether it was an engineer or a trainer of his, I don't know exactly who that guy is that he threw into the wall, threw out of the way. There is no way that person said anything to Stroll that would have warranted that behaviour. So, no. I mean, if I was running the team, I would get rid of Stroll permanently, not because of that, but for, his poor performances. But I'd give Stroll at least a big fine for that, because, physical violence is, that case is just not tolerated. There's so many drivers in the past that have been, frustrated with what's happened, have not gone out and done that. So, yeah. Needs to grow up. And you'd hope he'd start growing up, considering he's, 25, I think? But, yeah. We'll see what happens on that. And we'll see, as we said earlier, we'll see how serious Lawrence Stroll is about winning. As we enter the final 2 minutes, guys, of qualifying. This is where it gets real good. And everyone is on track on an outlap, except for Max Verstappen, who has, I think, just started his final lap in qualifying. Yes, he has. He's just coming through he's just coming up to turn 4 now, is Verstappen. And, Verstappen's made a mistake. Made a mistake at turn 4. He ran a bit too wide and he's had to back off. So Verstappen cannot improve. So what can the others do? Can they snatch away pole position on a weekend where Max is destined, surely, to win the championship? Here comes Lando Norris, who I think is the most likely to stop him getting pole. And Lando through turn 1 looks decent. And yeah, through the first sector looks pretty good. But how will he do through turn 4 and 5, which is proving to be very difficult for the drivers? Does fine through turn 4. Turn 5 is... he gets nowhere near extending the track limits through there. And yeah, that first bit of the lap has gone well. Wasn't as quick, though, as Verstappen in the first sector, so he needs to do a lot more in the middle sector. Does Norris, as he comes through turn 10, and we're about to find out what his middle sector time is. Valtteri Bottas improves up to 6th. Lando a 10.5 down on the lap so far compared to Verstappen. I fear he might not be doing enough to get pole. As Leclerc only improves up to 4th place as the checkered flag now falls. Lando Norris through the final corner as Alonso improves up to 3rd for Aston Martin. Where does Norris go? It's 2nd. Lando on the front row for now. What about the Mercedes as Esteban Ocon goes 8th? George Russell is now coming up to the final corner as Piastri's on a okay lap. And Russell to the line. And Russell goes 3rd. Oscar Piastri now entering the final corner, only in 7th at the moment. Surely has to do better than that as he now opens DRS and comes to the line. And it's 4th, which is not bad, but it's not great, to be honest. As now we wait to see what is happening with the others as Pierre Gasly goes up to 8th. Lewis Hamilton enters the pits, so Hamilton finishes up in 5th, and the rest have done their laps. So there you go, guys. That is an anticlimactic end to qualifying. Max Verstappen takes pole position for the first time in his career in Qatar. Lando Norris at least secures a front row. So Norris in 2nd, Russell 3rd. Brilliant result for him. Piastri 4th. Lewis Hamilton 5th. Hamilton will be disappointed with that. I think Lewis probably feels as though he could have at least qualified 3rd there. And then Alonso 6th. Great result for him. Leclerc 7th. What a horrible day for Ferrari. Gasly 8th. Ocon 9th. Great result for Alpine. Valtteri Bottas 10th. To be honest, Valtteri did well just to get into the top 10. And then the rest of the order, Tsunoda 11th, Sainz 12th, Perez 13th, Albon 14th, Hulkenberg 15th, and then Sargent 16th, Stroll 17th, Lawson 18th, Magnussen 19th, and Zhou Guanyu last of all. And that is your starting grid for Sunday's Qatar Grand Prix. And now that we know the starting grid for Sunday's race, let's now get into, guys, the driver of the day first off. And I will get the poll just quickly set up in the chat. Let me just quickly do it. Who do you think is driver of the day for qualifying at the Qatar Grand Prix? And the options are going to be, of course, Max Verstappen. George Russell, I'll put in there. What else? I'll put Fernando Alonso in there as well. And the final option I'm going to go is Valtteri Bottas, because I think he was one of the top drivers out there, to be honest. So there you go. Out of those 4, Verstappen, Russell, Alonso, and Bottas, who is your driver of the day? I am going to go for George Russell. I thought he was brilliant the entire way through. Didn't make any mistakes I can remember. And yeah, outqualified Hamilton. 3rd on the grid. A lot better than I expected from Mercedes. And yeah, Mercedes in general did very well. But yeah, George Russell especially, I think had a great day. So yeah, Russell is my driver of the day here in qualifying. Let me know who is yours, and let me know your initial reaction to qualifying. I will be sticking around, guys, probably for another, I don't know, 20 to 25 minutes. And make sure to let me know in the chat your initial reaction to qualifying there. Oh! Hold on. Hold on. Big breaking news. Big breaking news. Just need to confirm if this is true. And this isn't a... Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Right. Guys, breaking news. Lando Norris, for exceeding track limits, has had his lap time deleted. So Lando Norris will start the Qatar Grand Prix in 10th place. What a disaster for Lando Norris. Couldn't keep his car on the track enough. He was getting a lap time or track violations in Q1 as well. He just did it too many times. And Lando will start the Qatar Grand Prix in 10th. So your new top 10 for Sunday will be Verstappen on pole, Russell second, and on the front row for Mercedes. What a result. Piastri third, Hamilton fourth, Alonso fifth, Leclerc sixth, Gasly seventh, Ocon eighth, Bottas ninth, and Norris in 10th. That is breaking news, by the way. Norris, very late on, has had his time deleted. And Lando on the radio said, after his lap, I'm so shit sometimes, which I think is probably being a bit too critical, but yeah, there you go. So, I mean, looking at that top 5 on the grid for Sunday, that's a bit of a mix-up from what we've seen a lot of times this season. We haven't seen Mercedes, for example, be on the front row a lot in 2023. So, yeah, Max and Russell on the front row, that's definitely going to be interesting. Piastri up in third, Hamilton fourth. And Alonso, for the first time in a long time, is starting in the top 5 on the grid. The last time Alonso was top 5 on the grid, I think... When was it? Was it Zandvoort? If it wasn't Zandvoort, it would have been probably Canada. He's had very few top 5 starts on the grid this season, really, since the Canadian Grand Prix. So, yeah, that's a very mixed up top 5. And yeah, that's definitely a very interesting grid for Sunday's race. And of course, Sainz and Perez and Stroll outside of the top 10. So we are in for a very interesting race on Sunday. No doubt about that. Alonso, great quality by him. McLaren from races can do a poll as regards to Lance Stroll's career options. Suggestions include McDonald's, Taco Bell, KFC, and Burger King. Mickey says Max will pull away, but the battle for second should be epic. Yeah, the battle for second really is between Russell, Piastri, Hamilton. Not sure Alonso will really be in the battle, but maybe. Maybe, you never know. Norris, though, you would imagine will make progress from 10th. And Sergio Perez in 13th should make a lot of progress as well. So, yeah. Sunday is going to be a good... Well, let me rephrase that because I don't want to get our hopes up. It should be quite an interesting race. Whether it's a great race or not, we'll have to find out. John Garthwaite says Max has a good chunk of time on the Mercs. He will vanish if it's clean through turn 1. Yeah. The Red Bull should be quite a bit quicker than the Mercedes. No doubt. Vicky saying, lol, Russell didn't know about Norris. Well, I think a lot of people were confused at the end there because they did it so late. The deletion of the lap time. So, yeah. Looney Classics saying, Lewis again cracking under pressure in quali. If Merc do get a good car next year, he will lose a lot of points due to relatively poor qualifying. Even in 2021, he made a lot of mistakes in quali. yeah, Hamilton, I think was it a couple of weeks ago, he admitted that his qualifying, he literally said his qualifying has been shit in 2023. Which, I mean, the driver, you know, who's had the most pole positions in history, not really a surprise he feels that way, because he has not been anywhere near his best in qualifying. His race performances have been as close to perfect as what he can do, but qualifying has been an issue, no doubt about that. But right, let's get into some other comments as well, with the whole Lance Stroll situation, with Lance appearing to shove and physically assault one of his oh, what the fuck? Oh my god. Guys, another change to the order. Even though Piastri is currently posing for the top three picture, Oscar Piastri has had his lap time deleted as well. So Piastri is now, instead of starting third, Piastri's going to start in sixth. What on earth's going on? I have to stick around for quite a bit longer if this keeps happening, because qualifying clearly hasn't been decided yet. So now, the new top 10 for Sunday is Verstappen on pole, Russell second, Hamilton third, Alonso fourth, Leclerc fifth, and then Piastri sixth, Gasly seventh, Ocon eighth, Bottas ninth, and Norris in 10th. McLaren have had an absolute shit show towards the end there. I've not seen this before, where we've had lap time deletions this late for track limit violations. So just to update you guys on the Lance Stroll situation, Chris Medland has tweeted about it and has added some context. So Stroll, very angry, getting out of his car in the garage, and it appears, according to Chris, was told by one of his trainers that he needed to go out the front to be weighed, because obviously after qualifying, when you finish up, you need to go get yourself weighed as soon as possible. That's normally what the drivers do. Stroll brushed him aside, got the back. The trainer stepped in front of him again to remind him, and Stroll appeared to push him. And then Chris does go on to add that the last part was unfolding as they disappeared behind the garage dividers, so wasn't clear how it ended. But yeah, Lance clearly was like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not going to get weighed, at least for right now. And well, I think if that is true, because again, Chris there is speculating, as we all are, as to why that, or what the trainer was saying to him. But if it is true that that's what he was saying to him, then even more uncalled for. So, yeah. Let's see if I can find any other news quickly. But yeah, not at the moment, unfortunately. But yeah, there you go. Piastri relegated down the field. Russell be on pole in the next 30 minutes. Says John. And yeah, I think they showed a replay and he was clearly wide. So surprised it took them that long to see that. Arvin Racing says Ham versus Fernando in first corners will be incredible. Yeah, third and fourth on the grid, same row. That should be definitely very tasty. Verstappen and Russell on the front row, of course, they have previous when it comes to contact. So could be a messy and one. You don't know. McLaren F1 race. Question, Shazza, do you use the wheel or pad on F1 23? I've got a PS5 but don't want to shell out for Fanatec. Is Thrustmaster any good, mate? Yeah, I mean, I don't use a wheel for F1 23, but I did use it for the 2021 and 2022 game, and I will admit I didn't do great with it, but it wasn't because the wheel itself was bad. It's because, one, I'm not used to driving on a wheel, and plus, last year's F1 game was terrible in terms of the handling and the traction of the cars and all of that. I've not tested what the cars feel like with this year's game on a wheel, but in terms of the quality of a Thrustmaster, it's good. It's not obviously the best, but it's good enough if you just want to casually race on a wheel. So, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, if you're trying to buy a road car, it's not a Ferrari, but, you know, it'll do. You know, it's like comparing a Ferrari and a, I don't know, like a VW Polo or something. A VW Polo is not as high quality as a Ferrari, but it'll do for what you need, if that makes any sense. Right, let's find any other comments if I can. Yeah, I haven't. I will admit I've not raced on the F1 2023 game quite a while. Been a couple months now because I've been so busy. But yeah, on the pad, I've been, you know, when I have been, you know, playing the game, really enjoyed it. The cars, in my view, are the best feeling wise that I've felt for a long time, if not ever, with the F1 games. So yeah. Looney Classics says, when you grow up with everything and having a father buy you a team to race for, why would you not be what? Not exactly sure what that word means, if it is even a word. Lance is just a really bad person. I don't think he's a bad person. I think we need to, you know, not go overboard. You know, he's not done anything that's like immoral. I mean, everyone in their lives has, you know, got physical with someone when they shouldn't have. Whether it's as a kid or as an adult, we've all done it for whatever reason, and we all probably, you know, would admit that it was unjustified. Everyone's done it, whether it's a push, trip, or even worse. So, you know, because he's done that, it doesn't make him a bad person necessarily. We need to allow people to make mistakes in life. And from what I've heard, that's the first time he's ever done that. So it's not like he's doing it regularly to his, you know, to the people he works with. But yeah, clearly, you know, he needs to be punished for it. Does Lance? When it comes to you know, the way he is as a person, I think a lot of people have said this online, and definitely on Twitter, that he's not the most likable person, which I will agree with. I mean, if I was to meet all of the F1 drivers, I probably wouldn't get on with Lance anywhere near as well as almost all the other drivers, but that doesn't make him a bad person. Yeah. McLaren saying how I've actually got 71 plate GTI. Yeah. Let me find. Let's see if there's any news on Twitter, any updates to what's happening qualifying here that I can bring you. And yeah, can't see anything at the moment. I do have to say, though, with Lance Stroll, I am planning on doing, whether it's a video or a stream, I am planning on doing that at some point before the end of the year, hopefully. Where we're basically just going to go through his career and how he's performing at the minute and just look at, you know, I guess what's wrong with Lance Stroll and what the situation is and what should happen going forward. Because we need to talk about Lance Stroll. Everyone needs to talk about Lance Stroll because this is not, you know, this is more than just poor form. It's a serious issue. What we're seeing at the minute. Anyway, I think I'm going to bring the stream at this point, guys, to a close. Thank you very much for coming along for tonight's stream. It's been great to have you along for this qualifying watch along. Before I go, though, just a quick update. I will not be live tomorrow or doing any content tomorrow for the sprint race because, again, you guys know my opinion on the sprint race, and that's why I'm not going to be covering the sprint tomorrow. So hopefully you enjoy the action. I will be back on Sunday live at 4 p.m. UK time, 2 hours before the race starts for the race watch along. And then we'll be doing obviously the preview, then the watch along of the race. And then on Monday night, I'll be live again for a weekend review live at 8 p.m. UK time. By the way, chances are for the race watch along, I'm going to be solo because unfortunately for Nib, the timing of the race is really shit for him. It's like middle of the night, basically. I think like 2 or 3 in the morning for him. So yeah, probably going to be solo for that stream. That's not guaranteed, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, make sure to join me on Sunday to see whether this kind of crazy grid we've got, whether it will turn into a great or even crazy Grand Prix in Qatar. Of course, Max Verstappen can win his 3rd world title tomorrow. Just needs 3 more points. We'll see if he can do that. Of course, he probably will. But yeah, thank you guys for coming along for tonight's stream. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new before you go. If you want to keep up with what's going on in Formula 1. Of course, we do watch-alongs, previews, reviews, all of that stuff. Before you go as well, make sure to smash the like button. Let's try and get up to 50 likes if we can. And if you want to keep up to date with the channel and in terms of what I'm doing content-wise, if you do have Twitter, make sure to follow me over there. It's ChazHD on Twitter or at ChazHD5. And then we also have a Discord server, link below in the description and probably a link being posted in the chat as well if you want to join our community and get notifications as to what I'm doing channel-wise. But guys, hopefully you enjoy the sprint day tomorrow. But until race day, the main event of the weekend, and my race watch along at 4 p.m. UK time on Sunday afternoon, it has been me, Qatar HD. Goodbye.